Welcome to Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey, the fine arts podcast where I get to talk with composers, performers, authors, visual artists, filmmakers, and others in the arts. Before we begin, please hit the like, follow, or subscribe buttons. It's a very easy thing to do, and it goes a long way towards supporting the channel, and it really does help a lot. Hey, if you or someone you love plays guitar or ukulele, please consider visiting my website at www.rogerhumphrey.com and looking at the many things I have to offer. Much of it's for free. If you like what you see, please take a moment to subscribe. I promise I won't send you any spam, just occasional updates. Well, we are welcoming to the show Maestro Justin Bischof. He's the founder and music director of Modus Operandi Orchestra, as well as its conductor. He's also a very busy composer and organist of both liturgical and secular music. And I am so pleased that he's willing to take the time out of his very busy schedule. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure, and honor. I'd like to start, if we can, talking about the Modus Operandi Orchestra. Can you give us a little background on that?
Sure. I founded it maybe 20 years ago, I think, as the Canadian Chamber Orchestra of New York City because I am Canadian. I moved here to New York when I was 18 to go to Manhattan School of Music, and we did a whole bunch of concerts, including benefits for kids, etc. I also had at the time an opera company called the Modus Opera, which has a fun history to the title. And I finally decided in 2019 that it made sense to amalgamate them. We've done some Canadian music, but we're not a Canadian orchestra, so it was a little bit misleading. And also, I wanted to focus my efforts more on the orchestra. I love opera, but it's expensive enough to run a New York City orchestra without trying to run an opera company at the same time. So I just sort of put them together, and that's how we came up with Modus Operandi Orchestra, which, as an accent, was Moo. But it's turned out to be kind of popular as Moo. I have a couple of donors and colleagues, only a couple who demand I say Modus. So for them it's Modus, and for everybody else it's Moo. But it's made up of some of the finest freelance musicians in New York City. And my mission statement has been to do new works, to do interesting works from all kinds of diverse backgrounds, but also to do the standard repertoire. Because most of these great young players, 20s, 30s, 40s,
Sure.
Don't have the opportunity to play Brahms symphonies and Beethoven symphonies because there are not as many orchestras doing it. Not everyone can be in the New York Philharmonic, mainly because people never leave there as musicians because it's such a great job. And so that's been part of my mission, is to really have an opportunity to present the great works with some of the greatest players in New York.
Now, is this, I don't know how to say this properly because I'm not an orchestra guy, but is this what you would consider a professional orchestra? I mean, are people...
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I know top players in the city, people who are, are all incredibly trained and are doing a whole variety of different kinds of concerts, gigs, teaching, Broadway, etc., and classical gigs. But I like to think, and I'm pretty sure my players would tell you this, we've become a beacon of, several great concerts a year where they can play with great colleagues and a decent conductor and doing great repertoire. They're top professionals. Yep.
How big a concert season do you have?
Well, how big the season depends on how much money one raises. We've been hired now in the last several years for different concerts. So St. Thomas Church, Fifth Avenue, which is one of the great sort of flagships of church music and classical music, they had their 200th anniversary. So Jeremy Tilsell, the music director, is a very dear friend of mine. He had us for 2 concerts to celebrate the bicentennial, including Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto, Strauss' Metamorphosen, the Lark Ascending of Vaughan Williams. So that was an example. And then this concert that we're coming up with, that we're talking about, is a collaboration with Rachel, the composer. And so we're expanding our ability to give more and more concerts. But normally it's a couple a year, but when we have extras, it can be 5 or 6.
Okay, so you mentioned briefly Rachel Burkhart. You've got something coming up. It'll actually be in the past by the time we air this, but you got something coming up. Can we talk about that briefly?
Absolutely. So it's a wonderful concert on which is a week and a day from this recording, on March 3rd at Merkin Hall, which has become our home. Merkin Hall is a wonderful gift in New York City. It's one block away from Lincoln Center, and it's part of the Kaufman Music Center, which includes the Mary Moses School, and it's a hall that was built in, I don't want to get this wrong, I think the 70s, to seat 450 people with a lovely stage, and there's no other hall like it in the city. It's affordable by relative standards for concert halls to rent, and it's prime, wonderful location, has a nice, bright, live acoustic, and this will be a concert featuring the works of Brahms and Burkhart. Yes, we thought we'd do a little narration. We did Modus does Mozart last October. We're running out of M's, but that's okay. And last March at Merkin we did the 3 Bs, and of course normally that would be like Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, and I said we did the 3 Bs: Beethoven, Beethoven, and Beethoven. That was a fun little hook. So this concert will be on Tuesday, and it's going to open with Brahms' Tragic Overture, one of his 2 overtures, and then we have 6 works by Bridget. Want me to list them? I can list them right now. The October
Sure.
Fanfare, the Air Mount Auburn, which comes from her Requiem, which we did the New York premiere of 2 years ago, and then 3 Psalms, and then variations on Afternoon Light.
I think I heard the Psalms. I think that's on YouTube.
Well, no, the Psalms are, this is the world premiere of them.
Oh, okay, so I haven't heard.
The Mount Air Auburn you might have heard, because it's an adaptation from her Auburn Requiem, which was what we did the New York premiere of up at SUNY Purchase at the recital hall. By the way, that thumb that just went up,
Yep.
I can never make that happen. And when I do some random gesture once every 3 months, the thumb will happen. So of course it does it on a recorded thing. When we're talking about Rachel, so a thumbs up is obviously appropriate. Anyway, it's from her Requiem. Yeah. And then that will close the first half, and then the second half will be a little piece called Brahms Symphony No. 4.
Wow. Nice. Wish I
The
could be
hall,
there.
it's tight. We're going to have 46 of our players, which will be every inch of the stage will be used. It's not a hall meant for, well, it can't because it's just physically impossible. 90 players or 70 players. It was sort of more of a chamber music hall, but we have expanded anyway. We do about 45 players, and it works. It's wonderful.
That sounds delightful. So, working with new music, you introduce or you premiere a lot of stuff.
Try, yeah.
In the course of the year, how are the audiences for that? Are you okay?
They are if you have good music and you talk about it properly. They're all, and we could talk for a long time about different orchestras' sort of tactics about, you'll take something new and then make sure you put something old so that people can digest the new. I mean, the LA Philharmonic has been brilliant about just doing new music, for instance, and the New York Phil is getting better at it, I think, and with Dudamel coming, it's going to be even more. I think part of what it is you just are excited about it, you give the right narrative, and you go for it. Like, for instance, we did the world premiere outside of Cuba of this Afro-Cuban violin concerto 3 years ago that a friend of mine's father wrote. Guido Gavilan, his son, Ilmar, is the founding first violinist of the Harlem String Quartet. And I had seen them in Cuba, actually, and so I know the family, and then he said, we should do this violin concerto, and we did it at this big church where we were in residence in Long Island City, which is just one subway stop from Grand Central, and the audience loved it. We had 4 different percussion, Cuban drumming in the big orchestra, and Ilmar played, and loved it. It's the story of the history of Cuba in 3 movements.
Wow.
With the foundation of the forming of the island, and then it talks about slavery, and then it talks about rising past that. So I mean, it's very approachable music if you're going to think about it in terms of tonality and melodies. I mean, that helps to some extent.
Sure.
Rachel's music is extremely well crafted and very accessible.
Yeah. I think different composers, of course, have different approaches, and so some of the music you sort of have to buckle up for. and
Yeah,
which is okay. That's not a criticism.
sure.
But you got to prepare yourself mentally for it. And others, it's very easy to listen to and fun to listen to, and just kind of settle in.
As part of wanting to expand Moo, I would love to have a new music series. I would love to have sort of a series of a few concerts a year that does music that's only been written in the last 10, 15 years, for instance. That would be really interesting. But like everything, clothes, the music, art, what you have for lunch, I mean, there are preferences and there are levels of quality. It can be very, very subjective, of course.
Of course.
But it's like when we sometimes, some old piece has been discovered and it's not really great. I'm like, yeah, it hasn't been discovered or famous for a reason. And then there are things that are discovered that are, an unbelievable blessing and such a treat to have. Not everything is of the same value. But again, one can argue that till the cows come home. So,
I remember somebody was, years and years and years ago, somebody asked Beverly Sills. They were talking about some of the music that was being created at that particular time, going back to the mid to late 20th century, and some of that music was pretty angular. And they asked her, they said, "Do you really think that this is art?" And she had the greatest answer. She said, "Well, of course it's art, but you have to remember, not all art is great art."
Well, yeah, and again, you can argue that, and in terms of what you like or don't like, but angular is the word I like to use. And when Bluebeard's Castle was premiered, or Pierre Lunaire, or Rite of Spring, we can go down all these lists of pieces that are now done all the time.
Right.
And people love them. Not everyone loves them.
But Rite of Spring was roundly criticized at one point. So,
of course,
and now it's beloved.
It's the story with that, though. Of course, is it was more about actually the choreography for the dancing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, because it was all about everything was up in French and poofy, and this was down to the earth and in rags, and because the music had been heard for a few weeks before with Debussy and Stravinsky doing four hands in the rehearsal. The music was still a big deal. Don't get me wrong, but the visual also was a bigger factor that people forget to mention. So,
well, okay, and that's
yeah,
I'm just and my little pea brain is starting to peek through here, so I got to be careful.
No, I don't mean that. I mean that.
No,
of course, music
okay.
was intense, but it was people in rags dragging around the ground like, this is ballet. What the heck is going on?
So. Well, you conduct symphonic stuff, but you also conduct opera. What kind of a mental shift is that, going from one to the other?
Oh, I mean, I love opera. I haven't done as much since COVID. Just schedule and putting myself in the place to do that. But it's different, of course. I love it's an ultimate art form in many ways because it incorporates everything, right? It's music and the acting and the words. And the staging. I had done the Rape of Lucretia by Britain right before COVID, and that was with a small company, and it was a fascinating, wonderful experience. Very difficult to do and to make it all sort of tie together. But I love it. I mean, my mentor Ken Kiesler had assisted Giulini once, the great conductor, and he said, "Opera is like a train. If it arrives in the station all together at the end, it was a success." Now, we like to set the bar a little higher than that, but it's a shift, and also you have more rehearsals, you have more time on it, you have more to keep all together. You've got all the different singers to make sure that you're connecting with the tempi and the unfolding. You've got hopefully a wonderful collaborative director to work with, because that's a different, it's an experience in itself. And of course, I love it because when you start opera rehearsals, the music director's here and the director's here creating, and then you're working together. And by the time the performance comes, you're here, he's or she is in the audience saying, "Well, hold your breath, hang tight, it'll go well, hopefully." And then it's all on you. So it's an interesting shift throughout the process of the journey of rehearsing.
Now, these operas are staged as opposed to doing them concert style.
Yeah. And for Moo, we're not anticipating doing staged. I mean, there's some small companies doing that in New York. It's very difficult. Some of them do it really, really well. But the moment you try to make it bigger than something that people are like, "Well, why don't you just go to the big opera companies and go to the Met or something?" But I definitely want to do some concert operas where they can they could have on a costume. There could be a little walking around by the podium, but it's something that is in the works because I love working with singers.
That's that's great. I'm a former singer. Not particularly good at it, but that's why the word "former" sticks in there. But I do have a deep appreciation for the art. So that's terrific. Now you also well, let me stay with Moo for a moment, if I may. Part of your mission statement, I think, is if I read that right, is to engage and enrich the community. Is that right?
Right. So the thing we're most proud of, and it's been now several years, and I'm looking for new opportunities to do this. But we did 10 benefit concerts, one a year, when we were in residence in Scarsdale, which is a very wealthy suburb just north of. If you're of a certain age, you remember the Scarsdale diet, and then there was a murder. Anyway, but the thing is, it's a beautiful town with lovely people, and I was there at the synagogue and at the church, the Episcopal Church, and I created this annual concert with Dorothy Ewer. She and I did this together, where we helped kids from Mount Vernon, which is a very there were some very at-risk children, poverty nearby, and it's a very long elevator pitch. It's involved all these different organizations, but there was a wonderful woman named Mary Figueroa who ran this after-school program for the kids, between school and when parents could come home, and it was partially funded by the Westchester Jewish Community Service, but it wasn't a Jewish charity. And I had been at the temple as a music director, and the rabbi, who's now the head of the Reform movement, said, that's where you want to do something if you're trying to start something. And so we adopted the summer component, which was to help send kids to camp. So it got them out of some pretty horrific neighborhood crime, etc., for 2 months in the summer to be in the summer camp and ride and swim. And so we did a concert every year using the power of classical music to bring people together to raise money for these kids to be able to do that. And we did it for 10 years and raised $1 million and sent over 800 kids over the years to the camp.
Wow.
And I was very proud of that. And then I left Scarsdale, and unfortunately Mary passed away and Dorothy moved away. And so now we're actually looking to do something similar like that. But what made that special were the different leaders involved and the personal touch. And we knew that every penny was going to send as many kids to help them, as opposed to a fundraiser where it just goes to some huge organization and you hope it gets spent the way you want.
So you also, I think it's wonderful. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
I'm looking forward to seeing what else you can do. As a conductor, you also conduct overseas from time to time. How does that affect your style? I mean, is the process different? Other than
I would say that the short answer is no.
Okay.
The concept is the same. Well, not the same because this is different than my own orchestra, but you show up and you have a series of rehearsals and you have a program that's been set and you're working with people you don't know.
Right.
So that's different. I did. So there's that. But then when different countries, you have different cultural considerations. And so I conducted 5 times in the country of Oman.
Oh, wow.
Which is a wonderful country. This could be a long story. I'll make it not long. It's right there at the Strait of Hormuz. It's His Majesty, who died in 2020, was a huge classical music nut in the most positive way. He had gone to Sandhurst Military Academy in England. It was a very close relationship with Oman and England. And he went to military school, and while he was there, he took organ lessons. And I'm a concert organist, so that was interesting. And I met him through a long series of a famous organ builder who's a friend, Philip Kleiss, and a couple of conductors. But he had an orchestra that he founded in the 80s, and he wanted for his people to learn about Western art and music especially. And so I went 5 times. 2 of the times I played concert organ in the Opera House he built in 2010, which is on the International Opera Circuit. Beautiful hall in Muscat, the capital. And then the other times I conducted the Royal Oman Symphony Orchestra because the orchestra is part of the Royal Guard. Anyway, all the members of the orchestra are Omani, but the people who were helping teaching were foreigners and guest conductors. He died right before COVID. There's a new sultan. The orchestra's still there, but now they're not having outside people. It's called Omanization. They want more Omanis doing things. So I haven't been since 2020, and I'm very disappointed. No, because I have friends there, but to the answer to your question, there are cultural considerations on how you work with people. My first time there were a couple of members who were killed in a car accident, and how you deal with death and talk about death. And one was in a coma, and how do you pray or not pray and talk about it. And I navigated all of that, and they embraced me, and I love going there. And they don't have any history of playing Haydn or Beethoven, so it took more effort to instill the idea of the style, but then they would really enjoy it. The greatest compliment I think I've ever gotten was one of the violinists had said, because they don't have to. I mean, they're royal subjects; they cannot show up and they wouldn't be fired. But a lot of them work really, really hard. He says, "Maestro, I don't understand. You make us want to work." and he meant it in the positive way, because they could just sort of not work as hard or whatever they wanted to do. Yeah, and the last concert I got to do there was actually for His Majesty's New Year's Eve concert, which is at 3 a.m. on the palace. There are many palaces, but the actual main palace ground, he built a concert hall right next to the palace where you could have 120 players on the stage, 50 people in the audience.
Oh,
It's a little bit like Esterhazy, the Haydn where he was for all the years. Yeah, and we did this New Year's concert with all the ambassadors from Europe, and they all sat there, and we did this great concert, and it was exceptional. So that's one of my greatest stories about having a chance to go to another culture and be a part of it. On the other side of that is I've been to Haiti several times, and my friend who ran the school there, the Episcopal school, he unfortunately died at the end of COVID. But I would go and work with the orchestra, which is 10-year-olds to 40 or 50-year-olds, in a third world country with armored cars and machine guns going, and all kinds of horrible things. And now I couldn't go. When I was there before, it was really bad. Now it's impossible to go. But I went several times and worked with these players who had instruments that didn't work properly, and you had to sort of deal with that, figure out how to get around that. We did one rehearsal. It's in an open air school where the mayhem from the street, I almost couldn't hear the players, but we would still work on our Mozart, find a way. So that would be the specific location and culture affects how do you handle whatever the situation is. But the general concept of here's the repertoire, the concert's on this date, we've got this many rehearsals, you have to make a connection with the players, and then bring everyone to the highest level possible, enjoying making music.
You had mentioned, and we should get into the fact that you are a concert organist as well, as a soloist, and also as you do guest appearances with orchestras. So, number one, I mean, I think it's marvelous that you're a performer in that regard as well as, conducting is a form of performing, of course.
Yeah, but when you're a conductor, you never just become a conductor. You have to Herbert von Karajan was a keyboardist. Most of the German conductors were keyboardists in opera houses who then, does it mean he sat around learning all the Rachmaninoff and Charity? I don't think so. But you still need to be, an artist, a performer. Like a lot of us are violinists. I'm not. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Well, no. What I was going to ask is, when you are guesting with another orchestra, how does your relationship with that conductor work? How's that dynamic? Sore spot?
No. It's a smiley spot because it's a very smart question, because basically when you're a conductor, and if you're a half decent one, yes, there is subjective observations about people's approaches and style, but then there are sort of just empirical, like, that's not really clear. I don't know what you're doing up there. And you're the soloist, right? And so when you're a soloist, if you're a soloist in the concerto and you have the conductor, the soloist, a good conductor will respect the soloist. It's a partnership. It's not like I'm conductor, you do what I say. You're not supposed to approach it like that anyway. So there is, respect and give and take. But at the same time, they're the conductor, so they have to bring it all together. And then when they know that you're a conductor, that's when it can be a bit of a challenge, because sometimes they get nervous and sometimes they don't. Other ones don't care at all, which is what I prefer. It's like, yeah, I'm here to play the organ. And now, given that those Oman concerts, I have done several Middle East premieres of organ concertos. So Samuel Barber's Toccata Festiva, which is his organ concerto, I'm 99.9% sure that we did the Middle East premiere at the Opera House on the Great Kleist organ.
Wow.
There was also a Malcolm Archer organ concerto. Then there was also the a Whitlock poem and the Guillaume Andante. Like, these are all things that I don't think had been done in Cairo and Dubai and all these places.
Sure.
And all the other rulers, the ones that are interested in this, were very, not jealous, but were in envy of His Majesty's starting this orchestra and building this opera house. So others have tried to emulate that. But anyway, no, but I mean, I've had great relationships with, good conductors.
So
Yeah.
when I mean, well, let's go back to Amman for a moment. Did they put in a full pipe organ, great big beast of an organ?
Oh yes. So Philip Kleist is one of the world's great organ builders. They're in Bonn. He's my age, and they're fourth generation. They were founded in 1882, I think.
Okay.
And he's built in many of the big halls in the world. He did the one in St. Petersburg. He did the one in Beijing. He did the one in Auckland Town Hall. He did the one in Oman. He did, and many churches and cathedrals and the whole 9 yards. So, and His Majesty loved the pipe organ. So there were a whole bunch of organs by John Mander, which is a wonderful firm from England, that started in the 70s there because of his time in England. But then he, actually connected through my friend, the organist, who became the organist for the Sultan, and they connected through to Philip Kleist, and so he built this great organ in this concert hall, which is a great tradition coming from Europe, right? You have a concert hall, you put in a pipe organ. And America used to be woefully behind, but thankfully in the last 40 years, through having European conductors and also just generally became finally the fad, new concert halls have nice pipe organs.
Well, it's a rather expensive endeavor to build and to maintain, right?
Well, it's not as expensive as you think to maintain. I mean, you have to tune it, and then you have to have a little fund that you let grow, because every 30 years or so you need to re-leather. But the general up and keep isn't crazy. And the beauty is, if you're building a $200-300 million concert hall and you add in another $4 million for an organ, it's not the end of the world. If you're a little church and want to buy a $3 million organ, it happens all the time, but it's maybe a little more daunting. But if you're building a new concert hall, except for New York City, of course, it just spent $500 million redoing Avery Fisher and said, oh yeah, there's no room for an organ. They didn't want to do it in Carnegie Hall either. There's been kind of an anti-organ in concert halls in New York. It's very upsetting. But anyway, and also in terms of raising money for it, you want to do this hall. We need bathrooms. We need septic tanks. We need air conditioning. Oh, we need this beautiful instrument in the front. What do you think is the easiest to raise money for? We said, we need $6 million for that, and you can put your name on it. You can raise that money unbelievably quickly. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's the new hall, for the record, is gorgeous, because the old Avery Fisher was pretty horrible, and the rebuild is fantastic. It's great. It's just a shame there isn't an organ.
Raising money in this political atmosphere and in this economy, is that more of a challenge than it has been?
No, I don't get into politics. I raise money for my art and what I do and what I believe in. And I have donors and supporters of all stripes, and I don't get involved in that.
Oh,
seriously, because that's like because first of all, it's like, what's that joke? If you have two economists, don't mention the economy, because you'll have a fight. Right? Don't bring up the
I've never
economy.
heard that, but it's funny.
Oh, it's a classic, because it's like, no, it's the deflation, right? And so, what I like with the many people I'm friends with and stuff is of varying political backgrounds and ideas and opinions, is that we're not there arguing about it. We're talking about our friendship, and we're talking about music. And I have Democratic supporters and Republican supporters.
Sure.
And I think that if you were to speak to any director of development of a major orchestra, they would tell you the exact same thing. Because if you start to get into, picking a side or not a side or whatever, you're going to start alienating a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I believe that.
And that's how I view it. Because what else are you going to do?
Yeah, so just talk about just talk about music and then let it go.
Well, yeah, and I mean economy again. I don't put my opinion in all that, but you can't argue that the stock market's doing well, and so people with donations in stock and dividends or capital gains and all that. I mean, it's always a challenge. I'm not making it sound like I just pick up the phone and everything's a breeze, but I try to just stay on the prize, the eyes on the prize in terms of what I'm doing with my vision artistically for this group, and to do my best to do as much as I can with that, with as many people who want to support it.
So, as an organist, and you also you're kind of famous for improvising.
I really enjoy doing it. Yeah.
How did that? How is that? Did that just start like when you were younger and you start goofing around, or?
Yeah. Actually, a little ADD, and I want to maybe I'll just start improvising. You think I'm kidding, but I'm not. No, it definitely started young. It's and I taught improvisation through keyword skill classes at Manhattan School of Music. I do it privately, and you can get people to a certain point, but if you want to be a whiz bang at it, like, do it in concert where people give you themes, and I do sometimes whole concerts where I do homages to different composers. Homage meaning not worthy, but here I'm going to do a little homage to your style. I'm not saying that one is that composer, right? To do that, you have to have an inner, spark, interest, and the ability to sort of think where you are, where you're going, which we do as performers anyway, but a lot more when you're improvising.
Well, and I noticed as a player that times when I improvised, the nice thing was that I never hit any wrong notes. So,
well, what's in
you can hit a note that might not be correct, but you're only one note away from the correct one. So.
Well, that for sure is true. When I do these, the reason I started doing these sort of homages was, if you're going along and saying I'm doing a Baroque, Bach-esque homage, and you all of a sudden start doing Messiaen chords, you are making mistakes.
That's true.
You actually are making mistakes. But no, that's a fair point. I enjoy it. I mean, I've always loved doing it, and it's I talk with the audience, and I collect all these different themes, and then I select different ones, and I tell them don't be offended, because if I take your favorite hymn tune, I'll put it through all kinds of crazy stuff, but in the end, it'll all sound positive at the end, and they all laugh. It hasn't happened anymore because I keep telling this story, but it used to happen for years where somebody would inevitably come up and say, "That was great. Where can I get that?" And I'm like, I just spent an hour saying that I was improvising all this music, and you don't want to be rude, but I'm just like, well, for $60,000, I could write it out if you give me 6 months, But I have finally sort of gotten the message through that no, this is new, this is made up. But I love it, and as organ. So I grew up in Toronto. When I moved to high school in Montreal, because my father was Swiss and did some in banking, and he worked in several languages. And the French organ school is I'm not anti-German, I'm not anti-British, it's nothing like that, but the French school is where all this improv comes from. Oh. Right? So the French tradition of the big Catholic cathedrals, and you improvise the Mass. So Notre Dame and Saint Eustache, all of them, right? You improvise. And my teacher at Notre Dame in Montreal, I went to 4 Masses every weekend when I was in high school and listened and watched him improvise.
Wow.
Like I was obsessed. And just to date me, I had one of those portable cassettes.
Right.
And I would record it up on this, and then I'd go on the subway home to dinner on Sunday, listening to this organ improv, which was distorting on this little thing, and everyone would sort of leave the subway car. I was this nice little 15-year-old Canadian kid going, "Oh, this is great, eh?" And the loud organ music. But I mean, that just shows you, I had spent the weekend at all his Masses listening, and then was obsessed to listen to it again on the way home to map out the theory and to map out the structure. And so definitely obsessed. And organs, we get on a great organ. It's like, man, I played at Notre Dame in Paris and St. Paul's in London and the Town Hall in Sydney, and I played for the 50th anniversary of the concert series at the Cathedral in Cologne. And these are incredible organs, incredible in these incredible spaces. So it's really, really special to be able to create music, make music in them. Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who is a wonderful organist, and he works at a church in a suburb of East Lansing, Michigan, and but once a year he goes to I think it's the American Organ Guild. They do a big conference every year.
Every other year we have a national one.
Right. Okay. And so
Right.
so he makes it to that, and he comes back and says, "Oh, and he says we went to this place and this place and this place and this place, and they had this organ and this organ and this organ,"
Yeah.
and he just comes back drooling from both sides.
So I actually won in 2000 the national gold prize, whatever, in the national improvisation competition, which they do hold at those conventions.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was in Seattle, which was fun. But in Denver, this is a great story. I won't use any bad words. In Denver, I love this story. Let me see if I can tell it politely. Right. So it's a whole week of all these things that go on. That's a convention, right?
Right.
And you're going to all these churches. So it's not in the Marriott meeting room 4. There is some of that, but it's mostly in these churches. So you got to go places. And so we get in this taxi after one church at 2 in the afternoon. And we're like, we got to go to, I forget, we were either going to a restaurant or going to a church. I think to the church. And the cab driver turns around and says, "What the hell is going on this week? All I'm doing is taking people from bars to churches and from bars. And it's 2 in the afternoon." And it was, I didn't quite say it like that, but it was great. And I said, "We're a bunch of organists." He's like, I don't believe you. But it was great because there were just all these people hailing cabs saying, "We got to go to this bar, but then we got to go to the church at 3. I mean, lunch, whatever.
That's hilarious.
It was very fun. But so your friend, that's what these conventions are. It depends on which big city you're in and if there's specific organs and churches that you happen to like, especially in LA or Chicago or anything. Yeah.
So, well, as a solo organist, and particularly improv, now, does that have any influence on the way you conduct, or does your conducting have any influence on the way you perform on the organ?
That's a really very good question. That's very insightful. And when I've been doing teaching, since the last many years, improvising, and also when someone's playing on the piano, we're talking about a piece of repertoire, and someone's like, "Oh, that's just." I said, "Well, if this were an orchestra, that little blah part is people who studied and went to school and are in debt and practice, and that's their line to play. And the composer, I mean, unless it's not a good piece of music, then hopefully we shouldn't be studying it." I said, every part of the music has a reason and a role and a function, and part of a hierarchy, either in terms of the thematic development or the structural unfolding, or just the level of presence of which part should be more important at the time. I said, so no, that little thing is the tremolo cellos, and then over here is the oboe. And so conducting absolutely informed and broadened my keyboard playing because of that. Not that I was ignoring stuff and going blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But it's easy when you're a keyboardist because you don't have to breathe.
Yeah.
Right? And so we're just like, I guess the same with guitar, but if there's motion, we have motion, but the strings are doing this, all the breathing with the winds, and we're just like, never mind organ. It's endless. You can just hold that chord for 6 days if you want to. So it informed me to have more of a sense of connection and understanding that, well, everyone has a role and a part. And so when I was learning conducting and, there was, the horn, I remember I was working with this gentleman 100 years ago, and it was like I didn't cue the horn in opera. He said, they have 110 measures rest. And it was some old Italian opera where they had like 60 measures in the middle saying, we're going to cut this, and ripped up signs and come in here, and then you go, it's like, no. It's an invitation for them to play, and all the sort of different concepts of how you conduct. But yeah, absolutely. So that's a wonderful question.
Thank you.
It really makes a difference.
You also do some teaching and mentoring, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And can we talk about that just briefly, working with
Sure.
younger musicians?
I mean, I was for many years, but it ended 20 years ago. I was a professor at Manhattan School of Music. I was doing theory and keyboard skills, and the keyboard skills I really enjoyed. The theory I enjoyed. The ear training it's not my perhaps calling in life to work with kids about how to sight sing, but it's still important. I used to teach graduate theory, and I taught music history a couple years at Barnard. my schedule then made it work. It didn't work because you have to be there Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 or whatever, and it doesn't matter if you have a rehearsal or something. So I transitioned into private teaching and mentoring. But I mean, teaching is it's a gift to be able to do it, and it's important and it's an honor. And sorry, I'm about to sneeze, of course. It's an honor and it's a privilege to do that, and we need to. I'm trying to avoid the bumper stickers. We have to give to the next generation, but it's true. It's true.
I was thinking about this the other day with all of the people that I talk to on the podcast, and there's always that one part of all of the things that they do. There's that one little corner down there where they talk about their teaching, talk about their students, and I thought, if this were a rock and roll star or a country music star, there's no teaching. They go on tour, they play their music, they go home, and they leave it to the local musicians. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, most of the time you teaching is a source of income when you start out doing
sure.
it. Right, and then that's right. You have multiple sources of income, and
right.
And I have many of my players in their 20s, and the ones who have it really together have, they have 25 students, and that can be $10,000 a month.
Sure.
Which is, and it takes a lot of organization and pride and all the rest of it. As you get older, and as certain other income streams get a little stronger and stuff, I will always teach, no matter. And I'm not saying I make a lot of money, but I'm saying as I've made more money, I still love teaching. In other words,
right.
It's to me. So when you start out, it's like, oh gosh, I got to pay the rent, and teaching's important. But and so then there are some people who shouldn't teach because they're not good at it, and they're just doing it for the money. No, seriously, it's like
I've met a lot of them.
Yeah, right. And we all have, and so.
Or picked up the pieces after them.
Or pick up the pieces, right? And it depends. You see that. Oh, it can be especially destructive with voice. It can be destructive with anybody, but I found that in voice a lot too. It's a challenge. But as the money part maybe becomes not as important, but to me, I just love making a difference. And I get to be a little choosier now as I've gotten older. If someone doesn't want to work or doesn't want to put the effort, right? And one person said, "Well, I want to learn to improvise, and I'll do 3 lessons." And I said, "Great." Well, I said each lesson is $25,000, and at the end, you won't get your money back because you won't be able to improvise and for the rest of your life greatly after 3 lessons. So stuff like that, I avoid and don't deal with. And the classroom teaching, it was Manhattan School of Music where I'm the chair of the Alumni Association, and I was a professor, and it's my school, and I'm incredibly devoted to Manhattan School of Music. But like every group of people you meet in life, there were kids in some of the kids in classes, you're like, oh, they don't want to work, and this is not very much fun. So, when you do the private, it's a little easier because you can pick and choose. And that's nothing against Manhattan School. Any group is going to have people who don't do the work, and so. But still, my memory of doing that was incredible, and I still have some students from when I started in 1999. I just got my doctorate, and they had made me a professor. Those people are in their 40s now, and they've stayed in touch. So that's kind of a nice feeling.
It is a very nice thing. I have a couple of students in my schedule that are in high school that their parents studied with me when they were children.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, I've been at this a minute. So.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm not making it sound right. They're in their 40s and I'm in my late 50s. Oh, the one kid, well, he would have been. I started when I was 30.
Okay.
Some of these kids were 22. Yeah, 21, 20, yeah. 19. So yeah, right. So that works out. Okay. Yeah. I didn't want to make it sound like I was teaching when I was 12. I used to say one thing where I said when I would teach counterpoint, I said, look, F to B, there are always dissonances, a second, a fourth, a seventh, and F to B is not a fifth; it's a tritone. Oh, and then they'd all make that mistake thinking it was a fifth. And I would say, now listen, it's called Diabolus in Musica, the devil in music, is what they said in the medieval period. And so I just said, they come, burn down your village, take your crops, take all the sheep, but you can't do the devil interval. And I have one guy who's a prominent musician in Germany now. He's like, oh, I still tell people they're going to get your sheep. And they're like, what is he talking about? There was this guy. Of course, today I'd probably be told that I was offending someone. No offense was ever meant against the sheep. It was just meant for them to remember that it was a devil interval, and it's not a perfect fifth.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So it was fun, and I definitely enjoyed that. Yeah.
Well, my goodness, Maestro, believe it or not, we are totally out of time.
Yes, I see that.
And I have so enjoyed this. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Listen,
I hope we get a chance to do it again.
I would be happy to do it again, and enjoy your wonderful conversation with Rachel tomorrow. She is such a fascinating person. She's this composer. She's also a very prominent civil engineer with highways and buildings, and she's brilliant, and she's a really interesting musical partner. And I'm so looking forward to our time together next week.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Talk to you
thanks
soon.
for having me. You got it.
I'd like to thank Justin Bischof for taking the time to come on the show. If you'd like to know more, you can find a link to his website in the descriptions below. I'd like to thank you too for taking the time to listen. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share your favorite episodes with your friends and introduce them to Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.